Marzano has a bachelor's degree in business management with a focus in HR. She's a plan consultant with 401 Go and loves helping her clients build competitive retirement benefit plans for their employees. Denise has over 10 years of relationship building experience within the insurance and retirement industry, catering to businesses and individuals. Currently serving as a member of 401Go's Culture Committee, Denise is committed to supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace. She is Spanish bilingual and often travels the globe, assisting her Spanish-speaking clients where needed. She is an active community volunteer with the South Salt Lake Chamber Women in Business Committee, and most recently a newly appointed board member for Canvas for a Cause. C4AC is a nonprofit Denise has avidly supported since 2021. When Denise isn't giving back to all she meets, she's enjoying building memories with her family, loves a good salsa dance, and can make a delicious guacamole for your next carne asada. Welcome, Denise.
Hey guys, thanks for joining me today. Today I'll actually be doing a little presentation about company culture, organizational culture, and we're going to focus a little bit in the small business space. Also, if you hold a leadership position and you are trying to establish a team, this will also be a great video for you to watch just to get a little bit of knowledge and some skills that you can develop for your team, in which will help tremendously in building a company culture or a team culture. So just to start off, I would like to start off with a question to you, just to kind of bring back a little bit any experience that you've had in the workplace that that you felt maybe undervalued at some point, or even replaceable, or even having the feeling of being trapped at work, that someone said something, had a specific character towards you, that you had these feelings. I know that I have many times. And as a matter of fact, I'll share with you a little story. When I first joined the workforce, it was my first job where I had to go into the restaurant, get a paper application, manually fill it out, and take it back to try to see if we can do an interview. So, of course, after landing the interview and the job, this place was, or is, I think they're still in business, a local burger joint out in California. And they do burgers and steaks, and they also serve breakfast in the morning. But I remember when I started, I think it was like about a week of me being in the restaurant, that one day it was so horrible that I ended up doing 3 mistakes. The first mistake was the restaurant, what they would do in the morning time, they would go out to Costco, get these bulks of muffins, and they would bring them back to the restaurant. And so my job was to get each muffin and individually wrap them so they can be presented to customers who would want to grab a muffin for breakfast time. So when I was placed for this task, I didn't know how to properly wrap muffins. No one trained me, and I would wrap them the way that I would wrap my own muffin. So when my supervisor came to take a look at my work, of course, it was ugly and dirty, and it wasn't pretty wrapped in the plastic wrap. So after she saw that, she said, "You know what, Denise, this is a horrible job. I'll take care of this. You go out and make yourself useful." Instead of my supervisor taking some time to train me on, you have to pull the wrap to not have any bubble airs in there, or whatever the case is, to properly wrap a muffin, she just told me, "Get out of here. You're a burden to this. I'll take care of it." So I felt so horrible, so horrible. And so I grabbed a a broom and a mop, and I started to clean and try to make myself useful. So later on in the day, it was my turn to take orders behind the cash register. And there was this customer who placed an order for combo number one. And what I ended up doing is I made the mistake of pushing the combo number 7 button. And so, of course, when the customer came back and said, this is the wrong order, can you correct it? Sure, I went back to the cook, asked them if they can correct the order. My supervisor found out and she said, Denise, you cannot be doing these mistakes. It's costing us money. So again, another mistake that day. And just, I felt like my heart sunk and I had all this nasty feeling throughout the day. I was questioning myself, saying, what is wrong with me? But not only that, there was another mistake that happened that day. And it wasn't that big of a deal, but after all the mistakes, it was a huge deal to me. So a customer placed another order. They wanted a soup. And so I went to the back to pour the soup in the bowl. And so my mistake was that I grabbed the spoon and placed it inside the soup so I can, take it to the customer's table. So before I did that, my supervisor stopped me and she said, what are you doing? The spoon doesn't belong inside the soup. It goes on the side of the plate. She grabbed the spoon, threw it on the little counter that we had there. She grabbed a clean one and she said, this is how you place the spoon next to the bowl. She took the tray away from me and she said, Denise, go home, think about all the mistakes that you did, and don't come back until your next shift. So, being 14, 15 years old at this time, you can only imagine the horrible feeling that you had. I had no experience, in this kind of workforce. It was a real world to me. Every time I would come to work, I would just, go under the radar and just do my job duties. And I wasn't feeling myself. I just wanted to collect the paycheck and just go home. So being introduced into this kind of environment, it kind of sets, the tone for what work is really about. And so, throughout the years, this was similar, my experience, just, going to work, try not to do a mistake, collect your paycheck and leave. So up until when years later, I was hired by a college, a school. And so I was doing administration and reception work there. But I remember it was such a different experience for me because the first day when I first started there, they had my name as welcome Denise to your job or to your work family. People from different departments came down and they introduced themselves. They said, this is who I am. This is how I can help you. So everyone was just so loving and caring towards me. And I remember that one day when I was getting ready for work, I was running late. And so I just grabbed, a cup of noodles and a water bottle for my lunch. It didn't give me time to fix the lunch for myself, but this is what I grabbed. And when I arrived at work, a director from a completely different department noticed that this was my lunch. And so we kind of started a conversation about cup of noodles and, nothing to do with, how that was my lunch, but we just brought up some kind of conversation about it. But later in the day, she called me and she said, hey, Denise, I'm placing an order. What would you like to eat? And so I said, oh, no, I already have my cup of noodles. I'll be eating that. And she said, no, I don't want you to eat that. It's my treat. So I felt a tremendous amount of, that I was being cared, that this person from not my department, didn't work close to me, but she took the interest to, care for me and what I was eating for that lunch. Sorry, the light turned off here at the in in the office. Anyways, it'll turn back on. So it was a complete contrast to the experience that I had before. So what I want to talk about is the culture that you're able to establish at work and how that affects and reflects towards your employees. So just to kind of briefly go over the definition about company culture is an organizational culture is defined as the underlying beliefs, assumptions, values, and ways of interacting that contribute to the unique social and psychological environment of an organization. So that's a lot of fancy words for, what that description is, but it's all about how you carry it and how you live by it. So I also want to share another story, just to also give you, more of a perception of having one employee working for two separate jobs and having two separate behavioral outcomes. So I am a huge, huge fan of Simon Sinek and his work, and his videos and his books. I absolutely love him. So he did share a story in one of his videos about an experience he had when he was traveling to Vegas. So when he arrived at Vegas, he was staying at the Four Seasons Hotel, and he expressed how beautiful his experience was when he was staying there. And his experience wasn't beautiful because of the fancy beds or the design of the hotel, which, it helps, but his experience was about the people who work there. So one day he went down to the bar, and he met an employee whose name is Noah. Now, Noah, he worked doing, as a bartender or, at the cafe or whatever he could to help. But the impact that he made on Simon was the interaction that he was having with him. Simon felt like it was a genuine connection that he had with Noah. And so they were having a conversation. And so Simon had asked Noah, do you like working for the Four Seasons? And what Noah said was, he said he loves working at the Four Seasons. And Simon just had an instant surprised look saying, well, tell me more. What do you love about the Four Seasons? And what Noah said was that all management that would come to him, they would always ask him, is there any help that you need that would make your job easier? So they would care about Noah's, feelings and his way of working. So in a very pleasant way. So that's what gave Noah that reflection of being a happy employee, and which also reflected his behavior with guests who were staying there. But he also said something very interesting, that he works for the Caesar's Palace as well. And so he mentioned about the experience that he had there. So he said that management at the Caesar's Palace was a little more micromanaged. So they would always go and see what he was doing wrong, or if there was any mistakes. And so that, of course, reflected on Noah's behavior. And what Noah said is, I just go to the Caesar's Palace, try to do my job duties, and then collect a paycheck and leave. So I felt a lot of connection with that story because, it goes back to years ago when I was a kid joining the workforce and having this horrible experience. So as you can see, this one person that has the same values in life, that has morals, that has integrity, has two separate behaviors because of the work culture. So as how we see here in this first bullet point, it's people's behavior that define an organization's culture. So if you have people who have ugly and negative behavior, absolutely that will define what the culture is. If you have people who are motivational, who care, who are genuine, absolutely that will define the organization's culture. So as we can see, we as leaders set the tone for what that looks like. Management, team leaders, owners of the company, we all set this culture to grow as far as what tone we want to set. Of course, the approach towards their job that will affect working together as a team. So if you have, an employee that's just there to get the work done and is not interested in working as a team, absolutely that will affect as a team. However, as working together, cultivating and creating a culture, that will just create wonders to an organization. And all in all, the interface with customers, reflects significantly. So let's go more in detail about some statistics. Larger problems for smaller organizations. So on a small scale, companies are up against many of the same issues as the larger market giants. So the problem is that for smaller companies, the problem is larger. The reason being is because they lack the infrastructure and resources for small companies. So that's a huge problem. According to the Small Business and Entrepreneurship, which is the SBE Council, organizations with fewer than 500 workers accounted for 99.7% of the 6.1 million employers in the US. It's mind-blowing, these numbers. So it's not an understatement to say that small businesses are the lifeblood of our economy. So what are the benefits to creating a company culture, a strong organizational culture? So first off, you preserve the quality. You can recruit and retain good talent. And this is key because when you are recruiting and retaining your good talent, it means that you are picking all the good apples and keeping the good apples. Attracting and keeping good customers, which all in all makes the company more competitive. You establish good morale, strong teamwork, and it encourages respect, trust, empathy, and support for the organization. So company values and hiring to meet values. How do we do that? So first off, company values. We need to understand what they are. And if you haven't set them, you need to set them, especially being in a small company. What are your company values? So company values are actions the company lives by, and they keep everyone accountable to ensure that the company lives by them. So for example, if you have, put people first as your company value, and the organization is not doing such a well job about it, any employee can come up and say, hey, we're not doing that. What's going on? So it allows us to be accountable towards one another when we set these values. And so when we set these values, of course, we want to hire to meet for the candidate to meet these values. So when you're hiring and during this interview process, you would want to get to know your candidates. Of course, it's all about skills and what their experience is, but that's not all of it. We want to get to know them a little more under the personal side. What are their habits? How well are they with people? Is this a particular person that you want to work with on a daily basis? So we want to get to know them a little bit more. How do we do that in an interview process? Well, for one, you may want to take them out of the office setting. So maybe take a walk around the parking lot of the building, or take them out for a coffee. Take them out of that office setting and ask them questions about, what are your habits? What are you into? Do you play any sports? Certain questions that will allow you to get to know them a little more under the personal aspect. Asking the right questions. So, asking them about what it is that they can contribute to the company. Once you've identified the values and you have explained to the candidate what they look like, ask them how they can contribute by them, setting up what they have their attributes in and how they can apply that to your company. And recruit with honesty always. Of course, us as a company, we want to sell the best version of what that looks like. But not only the good we want to share, we also want to share the bad and the ugly. And letting them know what those situations look like. So when there is, a not so good situation in the company, how is the company as a team able to resolve those situations? And how is that candidate, that employee that you're trying to hire, how will they contribute into problem solving those aspects of the company? So also identifying those key points will create a lot of value when it comes to hiring. And see if the candidate fits them. So it all starts with the way that you create your team. So we want to make sure that you're hiring to meet those values. All right, here we have skills and attributes. So I'm going to dive a little bit deeper about how these two differentiate and how they can help when it comes to hiring. So for one, we'll go into details as far as skills. So skills are learned. They're not inherent to our nature. We're not born with knowing how to ride a bicycle or knowing how to swim. So these are skills that are taught to us. Skills are direct behavior. They tell us what to do in specific situations. Going back to, the learning how to ride a bicycle. If you're a cyclist and you are at a red light, as soon as that red light turns green, you will need to pedal as fast as you can so you can keep up with traffic. So that is a situation that you know what to do based on your skills. Or what about if you're mountain biking and there's a bear chasing you? Immediately that will be that your skills will kick into that situation and you will pedal for your life. So again, skills direct our behavior. They tell us what to do in specific situations. And skills are easy to assess, measure, and test. So this is how we are able to get easily seduced in the hiring process, because we are able to see immediately and identify the candidate's skills. We're able to measure that. However, with attributes, that's something that will be a little more difficult to identify right away. So for example, attributes are elemental. They're inherent to our nature. So they are something that's naturally within us or that we naturally develop throughout the years. For example, love or patience. Attributes inform our behavior. They tell us how we'll show up in specific situations. So for example, with patience, if this is an attribute that your level is very low, however, you want to develop a more higher level of patience, you'll find different ways of how you can develop this. For example, you can go and drive your vehicle into traffic and spend there a couple hours. That'll test and will help develop that patience attribute. Or stand in the longest line at the grocery store, or have kids. Kids will definitely help with the patience level for sure. The only thing is that attributes are difficult to assess, measure, and test. So we want to make sure we're careful when it comes to, hiring process. We want to differentiate those, and identify, what are their attributes. Of course, skills, this is important when you're hiring for someone that you would like to perform the job. But, remember that skills are always, you can always teach them. Attributes is what, is something that's naturally within a person. What can they contribute to your company based on those attributes that they have? So building trusting teams, how do we do that? So for one, creating a circle of safety. This is highly important when it comes to, your company and your employees to be able to trust and feel safety within the company. Not necessarily physically safety, because that's a given for all organizations. We want to make sure we identify what those hazardous areas are in the company. But what I truly mean about safety is a mental safety environment, where an employee can come to work, join a meeting, and be able to feel safe within themselves to be able to share their ideas. If they have an idea about growth for the company, as they're doing their day-to-day work duties, if they find a different way of how they can, innovate the process. So it's that feeling of safety, knowing that they're being valued from the leaders in the company. So it's creating a circle of safety. And within that will allow the employee to show vulnerability. When they show that, if you have an employee that lacks training, that lacks education based on what their job duties are, this will allow them to voice out what they're lacking. If they're not so sure about a specific job duty, they're not going to go there and pretend that they know something when in fact they don't. They'll voice it out. They'll feel safe enough for them to say, it's okay for me not to know this. I would like to learn more. So this will just allow the company to grow more by implementing different training strategies, offering different resources to your employees who, are able to voice out what they actually need. And of course, it's not just, setting this and letting employees know. It's actually living by your culture. So finding out different ways of how you can live what you actually say. So it's the same thing as saying, live what you preach, or I forgot what that saying says, but it's truly living by what you believe. And so if you're trying to establish this organizational culture at your organization, at your business, and in your teams, you need to live by this, live by your values. And all in all, how do you build your results? So with this, it's just like, establishing healthy habits. If you train and eat healthy for 20 minutes each day, if you train at least 20 minutes and eat healthy every day, absolutely you will have results. Now, it's different for every person. So one person, the results can be instant. And for another person, the results can be, take longer. But with consistency, results will always be 100%. I hope that this video has given you some ideas for you to build your culture in your organization. I will include some books and some podcasts that have really helped me, but I hope you have enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.